Welcome back. Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa has arrived in Ghana on a working visit. The president, who began his trip in the Republic of Guinea, is expected to meet with his Ghanaian counterpart, President Nana Akufo-Addo, and then hold a Ghana-South Africa bilateral summit later in the day. Let's get the very latest now. Sarah Kimani is our correspondent there. She comes to us live from Accra. Sarah, very good morning to you. So talk to us about the existing bilaterals between these two countries.
Well, indeed, a very good morning from the capital of Ghana, Accra, where we're expecting any time now President Cyril Ramaphosa to come in for a meeting at the president's office here with President Nana Akufo-Addo. Now, Ghana and South Africa have had relations running years. It is one of the countries that supported South Africa during the anti-apartheid years, helping comrades from the African National Congress to be able to gain independence. But in terms of bilateral and trade relations, there are more than 180 businesses operating here in Ghana, from telecoms to the banking sector, to food and beverages, to mining and industry. So quite a number of businesses going here, and that is the reason why the president is here, and he will be having a business-to-business meeting later in the day between business persons from here in Ghana and a delegation of business persons from South Africa who are here for that meeting. Earlier, I spoke to Minister Naledi Pandor, who said they will indeed be trying to revitalize the business relations between the two countries, and also try to discuss how they can balance trade between the two countries, because at the moment South Africa has an upper hand in terms of the trade balance between the two countries.
Yeah, South Africa is one of the largest foreign direct investors in Ghana. Now, Sarah, you mentioned that you did speak to Naledi Pandor, Dr. Pandor, earlier on. Let's play that clip.
Ramaphosa continues his West African tour. Today he will be in Ghana after a day tour in Guinea. And now Guinea is quite significant in his tour because President Alpha Conde will be handing over to him the chairmanship of the African Union. Now, to just get through what happened in Guinea, what we expect here today in Ghana, and what we expect tomorrow in his final leg of this tour in Togo, I'm joined by Minister Naledi Pandor, the Minister for International Relations and Cooperation, to just get us through what we expect. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, maybe give us a brief of what happened in Guinea and exactly what is this West African tour about?
Well, essentially, this is a tour by President Ramaphosa to strengthen the connections between himself and various countries on the continent. We will be undertaking further tours of this nature. It's very important, the President feels, that he builds strong bonds of cooperation and collaboration between himself and heads of state on the African continent, and that Africa understands very clearly that South Africa's priority of a better Africa alongside a better South Africa and better world is a priority that we take absolutely seriously. So in Guinea, we held excellent bilateral discussions between the ministers who were part of President Ramaphosa's delegation and their counterparts in Guinea. The President had very detailed and thorough discussions with President Conde. We've agreed that our Joint Commission of Cooperation will sit in Conakry next year. It has not sat for 4 years, so we've agreed to re-energize collaboration and ensure that the programs that we would like to jointly undertake are given a fresh impetus. Similarly, with Ghana, we will be giving life and effect to a long-standing agreement between the heads of state that we would establish a binational commission between the two countries, chaired at the level of the heads of state. So we will sign the memorandum. It has now been finalized, spells out the areas of cooperation, and will form much of the substance of the work we will do today. Of course, South Africa also has a significant business presence as South African companies in Ghana, And we're very pleased that that contribution that South African business is making, both for job creation and training of young people to take up enterprise and business opportunity. So there will be a business forum which both President Nana Akufo-Addo would address and President Ramaphosa. We are thrilled at that. There's a South African delegation here as well. We always try to ensure that alongside the work of the state, we also are enhancing economic collaboration. You know, we're now at a point where Ghana will be the headquarters of the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are beginning the steps toward economic integration. Effect is being given to the free trade agreement. Our ministers of commerce and trade are working on the detail of implementation. So all of this, I think, with President Ramaphosa assuming the chairship of the African Union, is a very good way of drawing together these many important strands to indicate his solid and practical commitment to the African agenda.
It's interesting that you talk about the African Union, because South Africa is taking over the chairmanship of the African Union, and you were in Guinea to talk to the outgoing chairperson, Alpha Conde. What exactly did you discuss? And you went at a very crucial time. It is 2020, the year of silencing the guns in Africa. This area, this side of the continent, has had its fair share of disputes and, conflict. What did you discuss with the president?
Well, I think a key discussion raised by President Ramaphosa and agreed to by President Conde was that when we have a new chair of the African Union, we shouldn't reinvent the wheel. And so what we should try to ensure is that there is continuity. You would recall President Conde paid particular attention to matters of security and development. President Kagame paid specific attention to institutional reform. And so President Ramaphosa wishes to build on what has been achieved, on the agenda pursued by former chairs, so that South Africa expands and enhances the successes that were achieved. Of particular concern in the discussions with President Conde was the subject of security on the continent and the issue of peace. Because if we do not silence the guns, we will not achieve development. And so it is important that we have greater collaboration, particularly in the fight against extremism and terrorism in the continent, and ensure that we provide effective support, particularly to the Sahel countries that are affected by this security challenge. So I was very happy that President Ramaphosa included in his delegation the Minister of Defense as well as the Minister of State Security. And we did give a lot of attention to matters of support in achieving the silencing of the guns and in successfully waging a fight against the blight of terrorism in any part of our continent.
In the business forums that you'll be holding here in Togo, one of the issues that will come out is the imbalance of trade between South Africa and the rest of the continent. Is it something that concerns you, and will you be discussing how then you balance this, or how other countries are then able to penetrate the South African market?
Well, the matter of balance of trade, of course, does come up from time to time and is an important issue that we must address. What is interesting, though, is that the surplus tends to be toward the petroleum exporting countries. So you tend to have high volume of trade in that segment, but there isn't a diversity of products that we are importing as South Africa. So what we need to achieve is a diversification in the economies on the continent, so South Africa is able then to purchase more, I think, value-added goods. One of the things that we've observed is the strength of the textile industry in this region, and perhaps South Africa could draw on that. We also think agriculture is a very important area. And we, with Minister Didiza, who is also part of our delegation, have discussed agricultural cooperation. So I think Agenda 2063's program, as well as the Free Trade Area Agreement, really hit the nail on the head when they assert the need for us as Africa to really look at diversification of product so that we are able to trade with each other. We can't have single-source countries. Our economies all have to grow, and I think there's massive opportunity in leather making. Many countries on the continent have very rich mineral resources. We need to look at how we share technology and expertise to ensure that we are exploiting those resources and adding value on the African continent, building a manufacturing base and trading with each other with a diversity of goods. So diversifying, increasing imports from other African countries, expanding trade. We also have said that we note that several of the countries on the continent tend to invest in South Africa through small or medium-sized businesses. And we'd like to see the bigger businesses come in, the banking sector and so on, so that you do begin to have an affinity of business activity where each party feels that there is benefit.
And this also comes at a time in terms of immigration when South Africa has been facing, like the rest of the world, a lot of immigration, and most of it coming out of this part of the region. Will President Ramaphosa be trying to mend relations after the attacks that have been there with this part of the region?
Well, certainly the President would refer to these matters, but I think South Africa has tried to go a long way. Ghana is one of the countries to which we sent an envoy, and the President here received the envoys very well, gave them an excellent hearing and advice. And as you know, Ghana does send many visitors to South Africa. We would like to see that expanded, hence the recent announcement by the South African government that the visa regime with respect to Ghana will be relaxed in order to increase tourists from Ghana, and we're doing so with several African countries because we do believe that the aim of free movement is something we must pursue.
And finally, it's been a very busy week for the government. As you come in here, Deputy President Mabuza is finishing his tour of South Sudan. Maybe you could tell us what your stand is. 100 more days for the parties in South Sudan to put their house in order. What message would you want to send to South Sudan leaders at this point?
Well, we want to see the revitalized agreement put into practical action. We wish to see a government formed. We'd like to have peace in South Sudan again. Peace is the sine qua non for development. And if we do not achieve a level of stability that allows us to pursue other areas of state and non-governmental action, we hold ourselves back. So I think Deputy President Mabuza visited South Sudan, having participated in the meetings of East African and other leaders in Uganda, in order to send a very strong message from the part of South Africa that we stand ready to support South Sudan, but we really want to see movement. And the issues that remain unresolved, the leaders need to give very direct attention to them so that all of us can then celebrate that at last we have a South Sudan in which we could pursue the people's interests and not be concerned about matters of conflict and security.
Thank you very much. So later this morning, President Ramaphosa will be meeting the President of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, for a bilateral meeting. And later on in the day, there will be a business summit between the business leaders from here in Ghana and also from South Africa to just iron out differences that still, cause business differences, trade relations between the two countries, but also to enhance trade relations between the two nations. Tomorrow, President Ramaphosa will be in Togo on the final leg of this trip